Hello everyone. What a start for the first review on this channel. This is a doozy. I will warn you now, Love Ribbon, the game I am reviewing, is a visual novel featuring an incestuous relationship between two sisters. This game contains graphic adult content, and while I won't show any of it or go into too much detail regarding it, I do discuss the overall themes, so you have been warned. If you are not comfortable with this, that is okay, click away. For the rest of you who are overcome by a morbid sense of curiosity like I was, come with me once more into the breach. Okay, I'm going to say this. I am not going to shy away from the subject matter. I am not going to be afraid to discuss it. The game sure was not. A review of this game pretty much requires discussion about this extremely taboo subject, and I've never been one to shy away from a difficult subject, and I'm not afraid to be thoughtful about such things. So, I'm going to avoid spoilers at first. I will discuss the writing quality, the situation, the feels, but I'll slap a big spoiler warning up before I really start talking about anything specifically story related. I'll provide a timestamp at that point, and down below, to skip over it to my summary at the end. Chances are I won't go too far in depth about detailed story stuff, as I think the story is the entire point of the game. But I would like to discuss one specific thing. We'll get to that later. You know what? I'm going to start off with why I even bought this at all, because one thing I can tell you is that I am not really into visual novels. They typically aren't my thing. I am a woman who prefers the company of other women, and a couple months ago I was feeling a little lonely. Okay, I'm lonely all the time. Anyways, being a nerd and a gamer, I decided to check the interwebs for any games which were specifically lesbian romances. I tried to avoid visual novels and knew that this would severely limit me, but to no avail. However, somehow I came across this game. The characters were pretty, the art was interesting, and then I saw the premise. Wow, sisters. I was intrigued. In fact, I felt this knot in my chest. I was going to click away, but I couldn't. I had to know. I had to. And so I bought it. And then I sat on it for 2 months. I kept thinking I should go play that game. But I never did. I had it installed, but kept making excuses. Oh, it's a visual novel was the usual one, but really, that feeling in my chest, it had never gone away. And I realized I was maybe afraid to experience it. And so finally, I sat down yesterday morning and I opened it up. And I did not pull myself away until it was done. I couldn't. It would have been impossible. It was actually that gripping. Let me start by saying that regardless of the subject matter, this game is exceptionally well written. It pulled me in right away, and it did not let me go. I also made the assumption that I wouldn't really have a problem with the subject from, say, an anime perspective, as maybe it doesn't feel entirely real. Well, believe you me, this game makes it feel very real. As I said, it is exceptionally well written, and it does not shy away from the consequences of the choices made by these two girls. And to be honest, it is absolutely heart-wrenching. I cried several times. I also laughed and smiled and let out happy sighs. It was a roller coaster, to say the least. The thing is, if they weren't sisters, no one would have any problem with their relationship. Unless they were homophobic, I guess. And I guess that means we have to talk about this part. As a minor spoiler, which is part of the premise of the game and revealed very early on, these two girls meet as adults. Or damn near it, at least. They really dance around that one. They legit didn't even know one another existed, and you know what? There is precedence for their attraction. Studies have been done on this. Firstly, my personal stance on the whole incest thing is, ew, not my sister. But when it comes to other people, it's pretty much not my business. I honestly wouldn't say I have an interest or disinterest in the subject from either a fetishized standpoint or an intellectual standpoint. I've done some reading on it before, but it was really just a rabbit hole I fell down while reading about some psychology subjects in general. I want to preface before I say this next part. I'm not a psychologist, nor am I a psychology student. I'm a laywoman who has an interest in a lot of different subjects and does a lot of reading. Anyways, there's a hypothesis in psychology called the Westermark effect, or reverse sexual imprinting, wherein people who have close and consistent contact with one another during their early years become desensitized to sexual attraction towards one another. Basically, that's why when you think about sex with your sibling you grew up with, you want to throw up. There are certainly criticisms of this hypothesis, but I personally figure it's pretty close to the mark. Furthermore, there have been numerous citations of siblings who were separated very young with no memory of one another, who then met later in life, and then usually without knowing they were related, found one another powerfully attractive. This effect isn't limited to siblings, but for the sake of this video, that's where we're leaving it. Look, I am not a scientist, but I did try to do my homework here, and while none of this is specifically mentioned in the game, it was on my mind the whole time, and I feel like the writers must have done their homework too. My point is, this is a believable situation, and the girls, they approach it in a believable way, which I will go into more detail on in the spoiler section. Needless to say, the story really sold the romance for me. I found myself rooting for them. In fact, I was gripped. I was on the edge of my seat. I couldn't wait to see what came next. I wanted them to be together. Their feelings for one another felt real and genuine, and their situation was so damn difficult. There were so many moments that were intensely gentle and heartwarming, but then there was also so much heartbreak because of their situation, and I couldn't pull myself away. I've read some criticism that the game drags in spaces, but I never felt like it did. I was always eagerly reading and clicking through, hungry for the next part. Whether it was happy or sad, whether it left me smiling or dismayed, I kept going and I did not stop. The ending was deeply satisfying, and I really felt like it wrapped things up nicely. And as the credits rolled, I smiled and thought to myself that it felt very complete. And then after the credits, the game kept going, and going, and going. And you know what? At first, I felt like it was unnecessary, and I was actually annoyed, but no, it actually continued to wrap up plot lines and loose threads that had been left hanging, and it quickly grew on me. And then, about an hour later, the game ended again, and rolled the credits again. I was honestly left in awe. My heart and mind were swimming with so many feelings, and they still are a day later. I suppose I should mention there is a bad ending, but I just couldn't. I wanted to for the sake of thoroughness, but my heart just couldn't take it. I'm too fragile, and I loved these girls too much, and I was too deeply invested in what they had to just go destroy it and watch it all fall down. I know it causes the bad ending, and I can take some guesses as to what happens based on everything else I know, but I just couldn't do it, guys. I am sorry. As for gameplay mechanics and design, the game is a visual novel, so there's nothing much to talk about, but I did appreciate two design decisions that they made. First is that the two main characters are the only named characters in the entire game. Everyone else is either dad or loud classmate or friend or things like that. At the same time, and this may have been out of necessity just due to the potential art workload, but The two girls are the only characters you ever see throughout the entire game. The only exception to this is a portrait you see of their dad in the post-credits section. I kind of liked both of these facets. It kept the focus entirely on the two girls, and even when other characters were talking from off screen, it didn't feel wrong. In fact, it was especially effective during situations where one girl was present and the other one wasn't, because even if other characters were there, the world just felt that much more empty without her, much like real love. It was effective and it was moving. As for music, there were only a few music tracks, but they were all pretty good, and I never got sick of any of them. There's really not much more to say on this subject other than that the music was not super varied, but it was good, and I enjoyed it. I even have a track stuck in my head right now. And now for our small spoiler section. I don't want to spoil too much, as there is really only one thing I want to talk about. One thing that was so powerful to me, but I can't really talk about it without spoilers. And that is that we do find out in the game that they are full-blooded sisters, full-blood relatives. They are not half-sisters, they are not step-sisters, they are not adopted. During the initial phase of the game, when they find themselves deeply attracted to one another, they remain in denial about their blood relation. After all, the younger sister was born after the mother left the father and moved to a different country, so who's to say that they're really actually sisters, right? Heck, she could be adopted. Right? Right? While they are both affected, the younger, more headstrong sister in particular is in deep emotional turmoil over this and ends up ordering a DNA test, which she gets her sister to participate in. They send it away, and then they basically forget about it. They go on dates, their relationship flourishes, and they really, truly fall in love. And it feels so damn real. It feels so genuine and so believable. They're in deep denial the entire time, and they know they are, but they keep on trucking anyways because they really are falling completely in love. They cannot deny how they feel despite their misgivings. Well, things get intense, and then out of nowhere, they get to test back after what is implied to be weeks. This makes sense. Those things take forever in the real world. The test comes back with a 100% match. They're full-blooded sisters. This absolutely devastates them and pretty much destroys their entire world. Things get so awful, and the events that follow had me crying so hard. I knew this feeling, not because I had fallen in love with my sister, God no, but because I had loved and lost before. I have loved, and I have had that love rejected. I have loved, and then I have had a situation require giving up that love. And it was told so earnestly, so realistically, so believably, and it just hit me so hard. It was so well done, and I just felt so destroyed by the whole scene. And you know, it's not the only time they have trouble, and not the only time I cried my eyes out. They have trouble repeatedly due to being in what they fully admit is an incestuous relationship. And it just killed me to watch, but that's really just fine. It wouldn't make sense if the road was easy, especially in their situation. But just damn. Well, the spoiler section is over now, so we're going to wrap this up. I'm not going to use a scoring system. I don't really believe in them. To me, a game is either going to be worth playing or it's not. A game can be just alright, or a game can be balls out amazing, but both are probably worth playing if the price point is appropriate. There also exist AAA games with millions of dollars and years of development behind them that look pretty but are actually awful and not worth experiencing at any price. So, Love Ribbon. Do I recommend it? Is it worth playing? Yeah, I think it is. I really do. I think this should be experienced. I'm not big on visual novels, but it's exceptionally well written, extremely well crafted, and it makes intelligent design decisions. It's at once intensely heartwarming and heartbreaking. It doesn't shy away from or gloss over its difficult subject matter. It faces it head on, and it does so with a kind of earnestness I did not expect. It also doesn't fetishize the subject, which is honestly a relief. I guess it doesn't have to, because if incest is a fetish of yours, the game is going to be up your alley anyways. As an aside, while I wasn't much into visual novels before this, I am now, at least the ones made by this team. I think I will slowly buy them up and maybe give my thoughts on those as well. That's how impressed I am. In the end, the relationship as presented is hard, but the feelings are genuine and believable and so touching. As I stated before, I was rooting for them from moment one, basically. I only wish I could have the kind of love that these two girls find in one another. Though not with my sister. I need a drink. Or a hug. Thanks for watching. Love you guys.